Talk to you about James Upchurch IV. He is a member of the 5th generation of the Upchurch family in America, one of 22 such individuals that belong to the 5th generation. We say that each one heads an Upchurch clan, and John Upchurch IV was head of clan number 15. He was born in 1856 in Brunswick County, Virginia. Those of us who have studied the Upchurch family know that Brunswick County, Virginia was a very popular Upchurch stopping off place in Virginia on the way to North Carolina, particularly in the 1700s. So James Upchurch IV was there right in a heyday of Upchurches being born and raised and living and owning land in Brunswick County, Virginia. The firm information we have about James Upchurch IV comes to us from his father, James Upchurch III. You might call these senior and junior if you liked, but senior left in his will, written in 1784 in Brunswick County, Virginia, land and property to his various children. He named his son James Upchurch IV, or Junior. In his will, he named James's 2 sibling brothers and his sibling sisters. There was a peculiar thing about the will, though, that tells us something about the family and helps us sort of place James Upchurch IV and his descendants more properly in the family. And that is, James Upchurch III did the peculiar thing of leaving 237 acres of land to his son, James Upchurch IV, but only for his lifetime. And at the end of the life of James Upchurch IV, the land was to go to the son of James Upchurch IV, namely Burwell Upchurch. Now, there's a lot of confusion in the family about why it was handled this way. Sometimes in a family it would work out that the father wouldn't trust the son, and he would think that the son will waste his property and sell it and give it away or whatever. But that wasn't the case here, because John Upchurch IV was a solid individual and in fact participated in the management of his father's estate after his father died. Our cousin Roy White, many years later, came up with a theory which I think seems to make sense, and that is that we know that James Upchurch IV had married by the time his father died, and he married a widow who had possibly a daughter. And the thought from Roy is that probably James Upchurch III thought, well, if I give my land to my son, something will happen, and maybe this stepdaughter of his will inherit this land, as opposed to my grandson, Burwell Upchurch, who was then about 2 years old. So he pulled the little trick of leaving the land to his son, John Upchurch IV, for his lifetime, and then to pass to Burwell. Well, some tricky things happened about that 237 acres later on, because we find that it was in 1803, Burwell sold that land to someone in Virginia, and at the time Burwell was living in Franklin County, North Carolina. Now that part of the story gets a little bit complicated, so we'll have to go into some detail, and I hope you'll bear with me as I go through citing 3 pieces of paper that tell us about James Upchurch IV and his son Burwell Upchurch in North Carolina. The question would be, if Burwell sold the land in 1803, did that mean that his father had now deceased, which presumably would be the only way that Burwell could have the land and be able to sell it? But I will say that other information tells us that probably Burwell had figured out some way to get his hands on that land and be able to sell it, and that in spite of the way his grandfather had left it to him. So we think it's quite possible that in fact James Upchurch IV was in fact not deceased as of 1803, that possibly was still alive and may have even moved from North Carolina on further south with his son Burwell. Well, let's go to these 3 citations in North Carolina about this family. And one of them comes from a peculiar kind of census that was taken by the state of North Carolina between 1784 and 1787. Now, this particular census we are going to cite for you was actually taken in 1786. I'll have to tell you a little bit about where it was. It was in Warren County, North Carolina. Now, to put you in the picture, you'll have to first visualize that to begin with, in 1846, there was a very large county, Granville County. Now, in 1764, it was divided into 2 parts. The western part retained the name of Granville County, and the eastern part retained the name of, got the name of Butte County. But that persisted only for 5 years. By 1769, Butte had been divided into 2 parts, the northern part being Warren County, which is where this census was taken, and the southern part, Franklin County. So now let's look at this chart, which shows how this census unfolded that was taken in 1786. And you see here a diagram showing that there was a family in 1786 in Warren County, North Carolina, headed by James Upchurch, which we say is James Upchurch IV, and he would be the entry number 1 on this chart, and it shows there the date ranges and so on, and he was the head of the household, and we presume that James Upchurch was in fact James Upchurch IV, and we show him as having been born in 1756, and that would have been in Brunswick County. Now, there's a female there, age not stated, but I presume that's James's wife. And then there was another male, 0 to 21, which would have been the right age to have been Burwell Upchurch, the son of James Upchurch IV. He was born in 1782. And finally, there was a daughter a female in the household who could have been a daughter. And presumably that would have been the stepdaughter of James Upchurch IV. Well, that takes care of the Warren County citation. But now, if they existed in 1786 in Warren County, and if Burwell sold this land from Franklin County, just south of there, the question naturally arises to where was everyone in 1790 when the census was taken by the federal people. And the fact is that we do find a James Upchurch on the 1790 census, but we're a little conflicted as to which James that really is. And to clarify this, I would like to take you to the Colonial Upchurch chart, which will help us in several respects. And you see this chart showing the first 5 generations of the family. And on the left, we have a green arrow pointing to the James Upchurch IV, of whom we speak today, and you see his father, James Upchurch III, with a yellow arrow. Now, the situation in 1790 was that we found a James Upchurch on the 1790 census in North Carolina, but the question, and in Franklin County. But the question is, which James Upchurch was it? You see there are 2 there with green arrows, and they are in fact second cousins. And the fact is that the records we have for that particular 1790 census for a James Upchurch would fit either of those 2 Jameses. So now we have the puzzling situation of not knowing how this family moved about. This James Upchurch V, who is the son of Richard Upchurch II, we know him to be a solid citizen of southern Franklin County, and we find him later on the rolls there in 1810, 1820, and so on. Whereas the other James Upchurch IV, we know he left the community, or at least his son Burwell left the community, because we find very quickly Burwell Upchurch south of North Carolina. In 1805, we find him on the tax rolls in Greene County, Georgia. Then he moves in 1810 to Wilkinson County, Georgia. Then in 1817, we find him in Mississippi in Greene County. And then find him moving back to Alabama, to Clark County, and finally to Choctaw County, Alabama. Now this is all for Burwell Upchurch. His father, James Upchurch IV, may or may not have been with him. But we do know that Burwell died finally in Choctaw County in Alabama on the 31st of December in 1847. And it's possible that his father was there as well. So we now then have firm information about James Upchurch IV, starting in Brunswick County, moving to North Carolina, with there being some confusion as to where he and his son were for that particular short period of time from 1786 to 1803. But we do have much more information on Burwell, and I would just like to cite a few items taken from his biofile, which in my opinion are very profound and very interesting detail on the Upchurch family. Of course, we won't go into them in great detail here. I hope you will look at the Upchurch bulletins posted on our website, where a great deal of this information is posted. I'll start by citing a particular book called Those Mississippi Upchurches by Genevieve Tharp Little. She's since passed away, but she was a very profound worker on upchurches, particularly in the Mississippi area. And I'll just quote from her book one thing that I think is very informative regarding James Upchurch IV and his son Burwell. She writes a fairly comprehensive article on Burwell, and I'll just read the first paragraph. She says, Burwell Upchurch has the distinction of being the first known upchurch to ever reside in Mississippi. Even though he stayed in Mississippi less than 10 years, it was another 15 years before another upchurch came to the state. The name Burwell was found spelled as Burrell, B-U-R-R-E-L-L, in many records. However, Burwell, B-U-R-W-E-L-L, will be considered the correct spelling for this man. This is a very informative and insightful article about Burwell Upchurch, and I'm sure many of you would be interested in reading it. Now, here's another article which was written by our cousin Roy White, and he sent it to me by way of letter on the 22nd of January 1984, and it's entitled Burwell Upchurch 1782-1847. And of course Burwell is his direct ancestor, and this is a very learned and comprehensive article. Now, he wrote another article to me, and this one is in 1996, and this has been published in the Upchurch Bulletin, and it's entitled A Possible Mother for Burwell Upchurch. And he goes in great detail about a certain Mary Upchurch who appeared in the various places where Burwell lived, and it's almost a certainty, as cousin Roy pieces together, that Mary Upchurch was in fact the mother of Burwell and would have been the wife of James Upchurch IV. I compliment cousin Roy on the very excellent work he's done and the proofs he has given here and how well he has done in doing that. Now, there's another citation I want to mention to you, a different person. This is from Juanita Ernestine Upchurch, who was also a descendant of Burwell, and I have here a 1999 article she wrote for me, which is in Burwell's biofile, going into some detail regarding her family's recollection. And finally, I'll mention a fifth item, which is really a stack of papers. And here's what I wrote in 2002. It says, on 30 September 2002, RPU processed a packet of information held for 5 to 15 years under the name of Robert E. Lee Upchurch II. Included in the packet were 4 letters penned by Robert E. Lee, dated 1966, 1967, 1969, and 1969. And the first 3 were to cousin Roy White. Now, the Robert E. Lee Upchurch was a banker in Grimes County, Texas. He was a descendant of Burwell Upchurch, and he was a very learned person, a very successful person, and I corresponded with him extensively. Unfortunately, I was never able to meet and shake his hands. But this is another intensive part of the family and how it all fits together. Now, we tell the story of James Upchurch IV, having only a few hard facts, but being able to piece things together primarily through following the tracks of his son Burwell and following his probable mother, the mother of Burwell, Mary. There's a great deal more to tell about this family, and we've recorded a lot of this in the Upchurch Bulletin. For example, among the children of Burwell Upchurch, quite a few moved from Georgia and Alabama to Grimes County, Texas. And it was my pleasure to publish in the Upchurch Bulletin in serial form a story about how part of the family moved right after the Civil War from Georgia to Grimes County, Texas. And that was a very interesting story. We think the story of James Upchurch IV should be put together in a more comprehensive way. And we have now an organization called Upchurch and Allied Families Association, Inc., which we hope will provide a vehicle for doing this. In the meantime, I hope you'll enjoy learning about James Upchurch IV.